Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of What If Deku Was a Slave of the Land of Viridian? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. Izuku swept sweat off his brow as he trudged further and further into the forest, his feet taking him as fast as they would willingly go after how many miles he had already delved in. The moon's light flashed off his pale skin and freckles every time a small hole was left unfilled by leaves in the great, big trees above him. He was trying to keep himself from getting angry, but this was the third time this week that the dragon he was bonded to decided he would fly off without a single trace. Although, after the first time, Izuku pretty much knew where Shudo kept going. Izuku broke out of the forest, the moon shining down on him at full force now, its slightly yellow glow foreboding as he was stared in the face by the wall of the Dragon King's castle. Shudo seemed to like playing with the few amount of bigger dragons that resided at this place, but he also always stayed after dark and Izuku would have to go fetch him before he got into any trouble on his own. Plus, the Greenette was well aware he had a rare dragon for only being a human SLV. Shudo was a dragon able to breathe fire and ice, a rare thing to find. Plus, he could shift into a human form. It's hard for him to do and stay that way for a while, but he still can. Izuku has never told anyone or showed anyone that he can turn human because the only other dragon known to do that is the Dragon King's dragon. And there was two issues that came with being bonded to a dragon like Shudo. For starters, anybody in their right mind would take immediate liking in Shudo and try to find out if he was owned by anybody. As soon as they find out he's bonded with SLV, Izuku is sire they would pay a lot to take the dragon off Izuku's and his master's Tenko Shimura, or his nickname, Shiggy hands. Shiggy is a cruel, cruel man. Izuku knows he thinks the Greenette is undeserving of Shudo. And if you think Izuku could just escape, then you're wrong. Shiggy is the mayor of a very big elven city called LOV. It stands for Land of Viridian. Everyone there, roughly 7,000 elves and 3,000 humans, know Izuku belongs to Shiggy. They would all help Shiggy find the Greenette. When Izuku doesn't immediately spot Shudo in the regular spot by the castle wall where he has been waiting the past couple of nights, he gets scared. He makes his way around, creeping on hunched legs to the front gate to the big castle built into the mountainside. When he gazes down far below, he can vaguely see the distant lights of his city. But it's mostly obscured by the big city that's stationed right in front of the Dragon King's castle. It's a city full of people who own dragons. Not big ones like the Dragon King himself has. Small ones most can't even fly. Though the very few lucky can. Most of the people with those dragons end up working in the castle. He ducks down into the shadows when a guard on night duty walks by with a silvery blue dragon trailing shortly behind her. The dragon seems to slow a bit, gazing down at a footprint in the dirt left behind by the Greenette. Izuku prays the dragon won't sniff at it and follow his scent to where he is quietly hiding behind a bush. But his prayers must go through one ear and out the other, because the dragon's yellow eyes dilate as its nose twitches at the print. The woman turns to give her dragon an expecting look, only then noticing the footprint. "What did you find, Agony?" She huffs, racing back over to get a better look. The dragon, Agony, lifts her head to sniff the air but snorts in displeasure. She growls out to the guard. Obviously the two are using their bond to understand each other. Unless the guard actually knows dragon tongue, which is really hard to master. Izuku doesn't know how to speak it, so the only dragon he can communicate with is Shudo. The guard nods at her dragon. "I've seen that kid around. He's got a dragon, leave him be, Agony." Izuku's eyes widen, his thoughts jumping to question how he could be so careless and let someone spot him. And when did it happen? The dragon seems to roll its eyes before continuing ahead of the guard. It's at that moment when the dragon is no longer paying attention that the woman turns and looks directly at Izuku. He jumps a little in his place, his heart rate ratcheting up like a dragon bursting into the sky to fly. She moves a single finger to her mouth as if to say, "Be quiet." Izuku can now properly see all her features, noting how she has a very elven look to her, with pointy ears and thin body proportions. Perhaps she was born in LOV and knows of Izuku? Maybe that's why she has chosen to spare him. In any case, a moment later she is turning away at the sound of an annoyed roar from Agony, darting off to join her dragon. Izuku waits just a bit longer before jumping out of the bush and moving forward at a slow pace while crouching low to the ground. He officially can see the whole gate to the castle and the front of it in all its glorious giganticness. It's very daunting, especially to Izuku, who has grown up only ever knowing a mayor of a city. Izuku shakes with fear as he comes to the conclusion that he might have to go up and knock on the gate to search inside or ask if anybody has seen his dragon. But that thought is abandoned when he's spooked by the said dragon landing beside him with a soft growl. He leaps forward and attaches himself to Shudo's leg in a hug, scolding him while he does. "I was so worried. You have to start coming home before sunset. Shiggy is going to be so angry if he can't find me." Shudo lets out a breathy chuckle, the bond they share allowing Izuku to perfectly understand how he responds. "Sorry, I got caught up with someone. I actually brought them here." Izuku's eyes shoot open in fear. "Who? What do you mean?" He questions, his eyes darting around until they lock with sharp, ruby-red ones. The eyes begin to move closer as the large thing comes into view out of the shadowed forest. It's a dragon. One bigger than Shudo, which is more than just expected this close to the castle. But it's intimidating, with large gashes and scars that blemish its red-hot scales and big wings that indicate it can fly and be ridden like Shudo can. Izuku can't help but feel he has seen the dragon before, but he brushes the thought off, knowing no elf or dragon that lives in LOV would own such a great dragon as this one. The dragon, once close enough, lowers itself down and Izuku's attention is brought to a man who must be around the same age as him. Izuku is 15 upon his back. The man hops down, and Izuku realizes even before he draws closer that he has to be at least 2 inches taller, with raging muscles and a tattered red cape drifting in the wind behind him. His hair appears milky blonde in the moonlight, accentuating his pale skin and sharp features, along with making his crimson eyes pop with light as if literally glowing in the darkness. As then man walks over, Izuku's eyes are brought down to his bare chest where a necklace hangs and clinks with each step taken, one unmistakably decorated by teeth and bones. One only the Dragon King wore. "Shudo, who exactly did you bring?" Izuku whispers to his dragon in a startled tone. The blonde, still 10 feet away, chuckles openly at Izuku's shock. "Who do you think?" Izuku keeps his eyes held down in hopes of not angering the blonde, knowing it could end badly. The ruby dragon beside him growls right in his face, his teeth snapping as if telling a child they did something wrong. The blonde rolls his eyes. "Fine. This here is Idru of the Kirishima dragon line. And I'm Katsuki of the Deku family, otherwise known as the Dragon King." Izuku wants to ask questions, he's so desperate to understand what is even happening right now. But he knows he must be proper before anything else if he wants this meetup to go smoothly. "This is Shudo of the Todoroki dragon line. And I am Izuku of the Midoriya line, SLV to Shimura Tenko," he states, bowing to the blonde. Katsuki's face falls into a smirk, his sharp pearly whites glinting devilishly in the moon's light. "How could a SLV like you own a dragon such as Shudo?" He snarks, crossing his strong arms over his chest and making Izuku tense up. The greenette shakes his head. "I don't own him, your majesty, I am bonded to him." "Yet that he can turn into a human, correct? How are you still SLV? Katsuki muses, Idru clearly being brought to his last nerve as he hisses warningly at the blonde's attitude. "My master is very well known and is essentially richer than anyone who has tried to buy me or buy my freedom in the past, your majesty." Izuku confirms, his face reddening at the embarrassment of saying all of that out loud. "Really? I've never heard of a Shimura Tenko before, he must not be too important." Katsuki points out, very arrogantly in Izuku's opinion. Many people would be angry at him for saying such a thing. "He is the mayor of the elven city at the base of this mountain. Sir, you may have heard of Ovi, have you not?" Izuku asks, his eyes snapping up for only a second to connect with those piercing red orbs of the king. "Oh, that place has been a stick-up my butt for effing ages. Have I heard of it? Fucking hate it and whoever the hell is in charge." Katsuki snarls, his smirk falling away into a huge frown as his eyebrows slant in anger. The expression looks very natural on him, as if it's one he uses very often. I'll tell you what, I'm gonna take you off that a-hole's hands and you will live in the palace with me. The words completely stun him and shut off his thought process. It takes a couple beats for him to recollect himself and form a proper sentence, though he still manages to stutter, "Why you'll WB? By me? Live in the palace? But why?" "Because, Deku, not only is your dragon special, but you intrigue me. For some reason. And I will be taking you as my bride. It's about diamond time, anyways." Katsuki decides, taking steps closer and scaring the ever-living daylights out of the greenette when he picks him up bridal style and sets him onto Ijiru's back. He then hops onto the ruby dragon himself, seated behind Izuku with his arms securely wrapped around his waist to keep him in place. I have never flown before," Izuku admits, knowing that he's shaking so hard that if Katsuki didn't have his hands on him he'd probably just fall flat on his butt off the side of the dragon. "I know. Shudo is obviously still too young for a human to ride him, though by his wing size someday you will be able to," Katsuki notes, gripping Izuku a little harder as he whistles to Ijiru. "Take me to LOV shitty scales," he demands before ordering Shudo to, "Shudo, follow us." Seconds later, with Katsuki's command of a small kick of his leg to Ijiru's side, and a tut sound from his mouth, they are shooting into the sky and being brought high very quickly. Shudo kept up as much as he could, but was always 10 spaces behind the bigger red dragon, Ijiru. It only made sense with how much younger Shudo must have been compared to Ijiru. That had to be the only explanation. "No. Stupid, Deku. Shudo is what? Around 15 human years." The king began as if he could read Izuku's mind. Izuku's cheeks reddened thinking of all the things the king may have already possibly heard, his body tensing up before the king's sighs. "You were muttering," he states simply. Izuku's eyes widen, though he isn't very surprised. Shigi has complained far more than just a couple times for Izuku to not know that he had a problem with speaking his thoughts aloud unknowingly. "I'm sorry, Your Majesty. And yes, you are right. I've grown up with him. He hatched only a couple weeks after I was born. A special bond formed when my mom was still P-Argin and he was still in the egg." Izuku also had a terribly horrible issue with spewing random spouts of information when he got anxious. "So he is 7 in dragon years. Ijiru there is not that much of an age gap, nerd," the king points out, his strong hands shifting against Izuku's fairly slim waist. The movement only causes him to tense up even more, making the red dragon rake out a small growl. Izuku realizes his shoes have been digging under the dragon's scales from how intensely he's been squeezing his leg muscles. He gasps quietly, trying to release as much of his weight as he can in size when the dragon's growl stops. "You bonded with Shudo before you were born? Who is your mother?" the king asks, his breath suddenly hot and sticky along Izuku's neck. Izuku buises his eyes with the vast scenery of tall grass hills, rocky cliffs as the mountains slope down, and many trees that have begun to slightly change color with the cooling seasons. "Yes, I sort of remember what it felt like, but I don't know all the details because Master Shimura says I shouldn't know. I just remember being very drawn to the egg when I was born, though very fleeting memories, of course," Izuku whispers, gazing quickly behind him to catch a glimpse of Shudo's shimmering white scales that bleed into the subtler, yet still just as striking red ones. His dragon calls out to him in native dragon, tongue that Izuku is only able to understand due to being bonded. "He asked who your mother was, too. Stubborn strawberry." His dragon snorts, letting out an accidental plume of fire and ice plus steam with his chuckle. "Oh, and my mother had no choice but to give me up to Master Shimura. He offered a lot of money for me and Shudo. My mom was dealing with the death of my father and raising a newborn child. She was already starving as was. She lives in town. I see her once at the end of every month. Master Shimura is very generous to me," Izuku explains animatedly, though his face tells a different story. Luckily the king cannot see the greenette's face from his seat behind him on the dragon. The king snarks in a nasty tone, "Yeah, sure sounds like a FING hero to me." The comment was obviously sarcastic, but Izuku was in no place to answer to the king with the status he held. He much rather focus his thoughts on the feeling of flying for the first time. The king must have caught on to his wanting attention as he whispers to Izuku, "What's it feel like flying, nerd?" "It's better than anything ever before," he mumbles in a clearly dream-ridden voice, before realizing the way he just spoke to the king and clearing his throat. "I mean, of course it is terrific. I expect nothing less of a king's dragon." Katsuki scoffs, but doesn't say anything more as the city lights of Izuku's homeland come into view. Aijuru must fly fast, because the sun wasn't even beginning to rise as it had on other days when Izuku had trailed his dragon back home. "I see Shigi!" Shudo roared out to Izuku, frightening the greenette terribly as he gazes down just to the base of the mountain where the outskirts of land of Viridian were dressed in his usual nightwear with a robe wrapped around him tight and an angry scowl. "Aijuru, land near that man." The king commands his dragon, pulling up a certain tooth from his necklace and blowing long and hard into it. Aijuru lets out a puff of annoyed smoke from his nostrils and rolls his ruby eyes back at her blonde as if he already knows the drill. The landing is nothing but graceful as they make a decline in space between Aijuru's long claws and the dirt and rocks of the earth. Soon, Aijuru is pounding onto the ground and digging those very claws in, his insanely large dragon muscles flexing with the strength to keep him from moving any further by the force of inertia. Shudo lands moments later. The blonde slides off of Aijuru then offers a hand to Izuku. Izuku wearily accepts the calloused hand, blushing bashfully as the king helps him down. This was different from how Izuku had ever been treated before. He was a SLV, after all. Aijuru and Shudo appear to immediately be sprawled into conversation as Izuku keeps himself slightly slouched behind the larger form of Katsuki. Shigi stomps over, his eyes slanted with fury. "I heard some of my guards say they saw the great dragon Kirishima approaching. I just wasn't aware it was due to a mishap of my SLV Izuku. I'll be happy to take him off your hands now and punish him to a public whipping, Your Majesty." Katsuki cringes at Shigi's cruel words, his teeth baring in sudden anger. "Huh? Hell no. Oh, my deep apologies, I assumed too quick. Would you prefer to punish him instead?" Shigi questions, giving a slight bow of his head as if he just remembered he actually had to use manners in front of the king. Izuku can't help but think that his master is a too full of himself slob, though he would never say the words to the guy's face. "No. I would like to buy him for myself and take him as my bride." It's obvious that the words surprise Shigi as much as they make him suspicious of the blonde's true intentions hidden below a promise as good as this one. "How much?" Shigi drawls, crossing his arms over his chest as his own fingers dig into his skin with tension. Katsuki rolls his eyes as Izuku slumps even more. The blonde pulls Izuku in front of himself, raising his chin up to look into his eyes as if speculating. His eyes rake over every tiny detail, and the greenette can't help but flush red at the sudden attention. "However much you want." He finally decides, making the greenette gasp open-mouthed. Shigi was a very greedy man. An offer like this could have him going miles further than the 1 foot Katsuki just gave him room to take. 10K, no less. "That okay with you?" Shigi grins wildly at the king, his blue bangs not being enough to hide the dark glimmer in his red eyes. Katsuki nods, pulling an arm over Izuku's shoulder and slightly bringing him into the protection behind his form. "I'm fine with whatever as long as I have him." Katsuki ushers, making the whole world seem to shift beneath Izuku's feet. His very understanding of his place in society cracks like a mental image crumbling to uncover a clearer worldview. "Deal." Shigi spits, extending his hand and taking Katsuki's as they both shake on it. "But first I must take him to my home so that he may pack. I do care for this boy after all." Izuku wants to shout no. He wants to brandish his scars and tell the king that this man has no ounce of love for him in his soul. It's taken him a while to have enough courage to admit this fact, but now, as he is so close to never again seeing this horrible man, he can't help but want to fight tooth and nail. But still, Izuku stays quiet, shaped to be complacent when it came to his master and making him feel helpless with outrageous punishments. Katsuki growls at this but waits for any further indication of this being a bad idea. Izuku doesn't even whisper to the king to not let this happen. Plus, I want my money first. Shiggy suddenly points out, letting a malicious grin slip onto his face. This was something Katsuki couldn't deny the other man, so he reluctantly releases his hold around the greenette and hands him over to his soon-to-be ex-master. Katsuki had ordered Siro the royal dragon stable boy the night before to have Idru ready for a flight back to Lovi before he awoke. And just as he had asked, he was pleased when he came to greet Siro good morning and ensure his dragon was prepared. "Thank you, Siro," Katsuki says as he passes by the bowing guy, his brain already working up an impatient buzz consumed with thoughts of retrieving the greenette. He already had the needed amount of money stashed away into a pouch hung around his waist that he only usually wore to hold supplies when he went to far-off lands, villages, and even other kingdoms. Idru growls a happy good morning to him. "Did you sleep?" "Well, Katsuki rolls his eyes playfully at his dragon, patting his side before climbing onto his back. He sighs, knowing he has to answer Idru unless he wants to be berated with another lesson on how he should work on his social skills. "I would have slept better if Izuku had already begun to make the castle his new home last night," he answers truthfully, his cheeks reddening a bit at the embarrassing admission. Still, he lets those kinds of thoughts slide off as Idru begins to walk out of the stables. Katsuki waves an absent hand to Siro, noting the sounds of rain pittering against the tiled roof of the stables. Some of the other dragons around the younger ones became unsettled by the rain and the smell of a big storm coming. Katsuki could relate to them in a way. He hated the rain. But it was for an entirely different reason. One that made him nauseous and uneasy in his place upon Idru's back. The younger dragons became frightened because their natural instincts screamed at them that their wings weren't yet strong enough to fly them through something like this, leaving them vulnerable. Katsuki was left with this feeling in a separate way. And it became all too clear as Idru took to the sky and rain pelted against his skin, feeling like hard pebbles rooting to send them both back to the ground. The familiar flight route to Lovi was ingrained in his mind, no matter how hard he wished for it to not be. Katsuki smiles hugely as he spreads his arms out wide at either side of himself, his father gripping his shoulders even harder as if he is afraid that Katsuki will fall off the dragon Serene, his father's dragon. They left Katsuki's at home due to rain. "Katsuki, it's raining," his father warns, pushing his arms down. Katsuki pouts, turning his head to eye his father curiously. "What do you mean?" "Of course I can see that." His mother directs her own muted red dragon Turbulent to draw closer to his father's brown dragon. "What your father means is that you could easily slip off of Serene." "Pfft, whatever." Katsuki shoots back, rolling his eyes. Though his attention is quickly occupied by something far more exciting when the elven village called Land of Viridian comes into Vi. His grin turns big again, excited at the prospect of his family being invited by the mayor to have dinner at his house. The rain rudely attempts to blur his vision as they begin to slow down and make to land in a spot just outside the houses at the edge of the widely spanned village. Katsuki quickly hops off of Serene, pulling a sugar cube from his pocket and coming around to toss it to the beautiful dragon. She snaps the sugar cube into her jaws and swallows with a content purr and flick of her long tail. "See you soon, Cece," he calls up to her, skipping up to where the entrance of the city appears to be. His parents follow him, his mother grumbling about how he never feeds Turbulent any sugar cubes. Katsuki decides he would like to pick this fight right now. He turns on his mother, sticking his tongue out. Turbulent doesn't like sugar. His mother rolls her eyes as both his parents catch up to him and they are met by two guards at the entrance. The mayor stands in between them, bowing his head as his blue bangs cover his dry face. "I'm so overjoyed that you could manage to make time to join me for dinner tonight. We best get going quickly, this rain won't wait for us." Katsuki gets an odd feeling from the man, but he tries his best to brush it off. Still, it's hard when he gazes up at his father and notes the way his face is scrunched up as if cringing, and there was nothing obvious to have that sort of reaction, thus Katsuki couldn't have been imagining the feeling, right? He ignores it best he can as they finally make it to the mayor's house. It appears to be quite old-fashioned, with weathered dark wood and dingy tiled roof. It's 2 stories and has barely any color, with windows placed in the expected places. Katsuki immediately finds it a boring place, but pushes the thought aside as they step over into the threshold and he nods at the neat and organized decorations. Still, they are boring to the extravagant things he has seen before. "Come this way, I must give you guys a tour." Shimura insists, his guard staying put at the door as a maid stops by and begins to take everyone's coats and hang them up. Katsuki sighs, "I don't want a tour, Mayor. Do you have anything else for me to indulge myself in?" He questions, and the mayor seems to be shocked at how well-spoken Katsuki is for being 7 years old. Katsuki takes lessons on stuff like this all the time, it's only rightful with his place as Prince of the Mountains. "Ahem, Toga, please show him to Dada Midoriya, I suppose?" Shimura orders the maid who had taken their jackets. The blonde girl nods, seeming to not be any older than 16. Katsuki oddly enough finds himself wondering how she found her way into the position she was in right now. A maid to the mayor of land of Viridian. "Right this way, your majesty," Toga directs, leading him down a hall as his parents are showed to the second floor. The hall is pretty tight until they get to the end where it opens up into a fairly large room. Inside, Katsuki lays his eyes on the most gorgeous and fragile creature he has ever seen. A small boy, with freckles scattered like constellations, green eyes as bright as the aurora borealis, and a slim figure that could easily be mistaken for an elf's, but it was evident by his smell and rounded-off ears that he was a human. "Midoriya, this is Prince Katsuki Bakugu of the Dragon-Peaked Mountains. You will entertain him whilst his parents are given a tour." Toga informs the greenette, his eyelashes batting wildly as he stares at Katsuki right back. Katsuki, always known for his big ego, runs right into the room and crouches down in front of the boy where he is sitting on the ground. "Hey, what's your name?" he questions, his grin huge as he hears the sounds of Toga's footsteps taking their leave. The green-haired boy backs up abruptly, bouncing up onto the ball of his feet as he lunges too far back and only ends up back on his but for all his troubles. Katsuki chuckles at him, offering a hand to help him off the ground. The small boy waits a beat, staring with watery eyes at the hand before taking it in his own. Katsuki feels unsettled when he notices how calloused and dry the boy's skin was. He immediately, after helping him up, grabs hold of his other hand and cups them both between his own. He summons his deepest part of his soul, squeezing his eyes shut hard and imagining a shifting, simmering red of colors in the darkness of his absent sight. The feeling of magic begins to flow through him, warming the greenette's hand and healing as much scars as he can. Magic isn't used as much these days, but it's not unheard of to see the royal families still practicing such ways. Especially the Bakugus, with how atoned they still were with animals and nature alike. The boy seems to finally find the courage to speak as a tiny smile replaces the frown he wore only moments ago. "Am Izuku Midoriya." "Deku it is." Katsuki chuckles, making the greenette's eyes widen and a tiny squeak to leave his mouth. He looks like he's about to cry before he shakes out his head and decides against it, opting to instead go on to say, "Thank you. For healing my hands, that is. You are ever generous, Prince." Katsuki sniffs haughtily at the too formal answer, growling at the smaller boy, "You don't need to call me that. Just call me Katsuki." Izuku tilts his head, trying to copy the name. "Katsuki? No. Not Tsu, it's more like Dotsuki." Katsuki corrects, hoping to help the struggling boy. "Come on, Deku, you got this." "Kaizutun." Izuku sneezes as some dust flies too close to his nose, making him really distort Katsuki's name. The boy sniffles out an apology, and to Katsuki's utter surprise, the greenette goes along with the weird name. "Sorry, Kaken." Katsuki tries to hold back his pleasure at the name, feeling pride in knowing this might be his first ever real friend. What a Deku. The boys play around and get to know each other better for what seems like ages, Katsuki quickly learning that the greenette was a sucker for learning about all the places Katsuki had traveled and all the things he was taught by his royal teacher. This is how he came to not only call him Deku, but stuff like nerd or fanboy as well. But their fun seemed to be coming to a close as the mayor walked into the room. "Prince Katsuki, the tour is over and dinner is ready to be served. Do come join us, your majesty." Shimura informs, stepping further into the room to eye both of the boys. But Katsuki doesn't want to leave the greenette yet, and the only way he has gotten what he's wanted when it didn't come to his parents was crying. So he began bawling tears, fat and round as they rolled down his cheeks, and he shouted, "Izuku!" stomping his feet up and down. But the mayor reads the situation wrong, turning on the human and snarling at him, "What did you do to him? UFNSLV." He grips Izuku's wrist and begins pulling him to a side door that Katsuki didn't notice before, but it seems to lead outside of the house. Katsuki slips out behind the other two, trying to stay relatively hidden as he watches in horror at the scene before him. Shimura takes both of Izuku's wrists and chains him to a wooden cross with his front facing Katsuki. Then he sees it. Something that has more meaningful tears running down his face as the rain pelts against his skin, mingling with the salter water from his eyes. A whip. Shimura doesn't even bother to rid the boy of his shirt as he makes the first strike, shredding right through the thin fabric with the force of the blow. Katsuki only thinks it's harder to watch this happen at first due to the agonizing and dry shouts the greenette cries out into the loudness of the storm. But it only gets worse when more hits meet his skin, and Katsuki can see his green eyes slide to the ground with a shameful expression pressed into his face and his yells dying down as if he is now willingly giving up. The idea of that entirely has Katsuki shooting out of his hidden spot and throwing up onto the paved ground. But he doesn't stop his advancement, hoping to somehow stop and explain how wrong this all FING was. He crawls on his now weak limbs, only coming to a stop with a gasp when he is 2 feet away. His hands have landed in something wet, sticky, and warm. He's scared to peer down, but against better judgment, he does. And he's only horrified by what he sees. Izuku's blood, mixed with dirt and rain, sliding through the grooves of the pavement and staining his hands and clothes. It was sickening. And as the last strike hit Izuku, Katsuki finds himself staring right into those now muted jade eyes, and it makes him feel even worse when Izuku manages to give him a small smile to make him feel better about this situation. None of it seems to calm his nerves. "Let him go!" Katsuki roars through the whipping wind of the storm, climbing to his feet and pounding his fists against Shimura's legs. The mayor rolls his eyes. "No. I don't want him to track blood inside. He'll stay out here until the rain stops his bleeding." Shimura then begins to push him away, and Katsuki isn't big enough to do anything against the force as he's ushered back into the house and the door they just came through is locked by the mayor. "Let's not speak of this with your parents, They wouldn't be too happy of you having to see that, and if you do tell them, I'll only have to punish him more." The words hardly register enough, but he still ends up going to dinner and being so shaken that he ends up not speaking one single word. He promises himself at that moment that he will come back here when he is king one day and take what's rightfully his. Izuku Midoriya. Izuku scuttled out of his bed that morning, immediately questioning to himself if he should still do his regular chores as usual. Then again, he would be bought today by the Dragon King. So shouldn't he be getting himself ready? Make himself look nice. At the moment he is dressed up in his pajamas, which are ones he has actually had since he was 13. A knock at his small bedroom door alerts him to go open it. When he throws the door back, he is met by 2 maids that belong to Shimura. His heart aches knowing he can't take Himiko and Tuya with him. Maybe he can still come to visit them, they were a huge part of his childhood, after all. "Master Shimura has sent us to escort you to your mother for the morning." Himiko informs him, blowing some blonde hair out of her face as she stands up straight. Izuku is admittedly confused, but why? Is all he can manage to ask, wondering if the king has suddenly changed his mind and realized that Izuku is worthless as the nickname Deku suggests. "She will be getting you ready for the king." Tuya replies, making Izuku's eyes blow out wide. Still, he steps out of his room and lets them begin to walk side by side with him as they head to leave the house. Izuku doesn't see Shimura, so he must be still asleep. At least for the time being, he won't risk making his master angry in their last moments together. Izuku has enough scars as is. Izuku anxiously fiddles with his tattered night clothes. He hadn't even gotten a real chance to change into something more flattering before the 3 of them had made off for his mother's house. Now he stood waiting as Tuya knocked on the front door of the very small house. Luckily, it only takes a few beats of time for his mom to come to answer the door. When she opens it up, her eyes immediately fall onto Izuku and she smiles a bit. "My, what are you three dears doing here today?" Her voice is sickly sweet, yet also so familiar and reminds Izuku of times he used to have away from his master and in the safety of the person who birthed him. Times when the warning of being punished weren't held over his head at any given moment. "Oh wait, that's right. Mayor Shimura sent someone last night to say I would be getting my boy ready today. But what for exactly?" She eyes the two maids, obviously not expecting Izuku to answer. Still, the boy can't help himself but relay the news of who is buying him. "The Dragon King is going to take custody of me today." His mother's eyes widen, but she doesn't waste a moment longer as she rushes him into the house and begins to get him ready. By the time she is done, his hair is unmatted and fluffy, his skin is scrubbed clean of any dirt or grime. He is wearing brand new clothes made by her that look quite nice on him. He has a white undershirt on with puffy sleeves that remind him of a pirate's, with a green vest over top of it, the sides laced together with brown string tied tight. He wears long, brown weathered jeans that don't leave much up to imagination when it comes to how much muscle he has built up from the many things he has been forced to do by Shimura. And his mom has put a satchel along with the look, saying not only is it stylish but also perfect for packing a few things before he goes. He ends up putting some potions which his mother swears will work, even if she is just a human, a book of dragon laws and manners, and the last thing his mother insisted he bring even if the notion makes him blush is condoms. Really, he didn't think they would be having sex anytime soon. Finally, she has slipped a golden ring on his left hand's pointer finger, telling him that it belonged to his father. My, do you make him look like a charmer?" The voice makes Izuku cringe as his gaze snaps to who has just rudely entered the house unannounced. Nito Minoma, his father's other son, who is actually half-elf and from his father's first and less successful marriage, hence why he now has his mother's last name. Izuku had some pretty mean words for the slightly older boy that he knew he would never get to say to his snobby little face. "So, what's the special occasion? Did he finally accept to take Ibra Shiozaki for marriage? I believe they would get along swell." Nito snarks, throwing his head back in a laugh as he says his next words. "Or did his master force him to say yes to her?" Ibra was a kind elf who had ended up falling in love with Izuku after first meeting him when her family, a big supplier of food grown in LOV, came to have dinner with Izuku's master. She had asked to marry the greenette, even going as far as to beg her parents to get enough money to buy and then force him into it, but they had denied her. And Izuku had said no to marrying her. Not because she was a bad person or anything, no, because he had just never had a very big interest in women. Which is unfortunate since his chances of being able to marry his same gender is slim to none due to the laws. Only those very rich and high on the social triangle are able to do such a thing. In any case, Izuku had no plans on ever marrying Ibra. Neither. Izuku hisses back, turning away from his mother and getting ready to swing a fist at the blonde if necessary or with enough provocation, which he had begun to verge on. "Oh really? Then what's really going on?" Nito asks, rolling his eyes as if this conversation is beginning to bore him. Izuku can't wait to completely slap that look of his stupid face when he hears the news. "The Dragon King is taking me as his bride," Izuku tells him, letting a smug smirk pull at his lips as he waits for Nito's expected outburst and temper tantrum. Yet, Nito chuckles at his words. "You really think I'm dumb enough to believe that? You're such a kiss butt." Izuku's mom glares at Nito. "Now, listen up here. I didn't tell you that you're welcome here whenever just so that you could be disrespectful to my son." She yells at him, wiggling a scolding finger at his face. It's not disrespectful when he is the SLV and I'm the one living off my own money." At those words, it's Himiko and Tuya's turn to get angry as they pause their card game at the dinner table and stand up to go hash Nito about his words. Izuku feels a bit of joy at the scene, and it's not just because Nito now looks overwhelmed by the amount of backtalk he is getting. No, it's because he knows no matter what happens with the Dragon King, he still has some people who will be glad to see him back here. If it comes to that, a tiny part of him is at deep dismay at the thought of ever coming back to live here again though. "Everyone quiet." Izuku's mother suddenly yells, making the whole house fall into a silent hush. It's then that Izuku can hear what she must have been trying to warn them all about, the sound of two dragons coming their way. Izuku shakes with anxiety, goosebumps raising on his arms as he makes the connection that it must be the Dragon King with Aijuru while Shudo flies behind them. Moments later, the unmistakable stomp of two dragons landing sounds outside the house. Izuku turns to his mother and she moves to wipe something off his face. It takes him a second to realize what that something is his own tears. Even if he knows this is probably for the best, he also knows that his life is about to change very drastically and get really hard. The kind of ridicule he'll likely get from the kingdom for once being a SLV will be enough to bring him to tears time and time again, presuming that people will be unforward at the idea that is. But he is willing to try. There is a strong knock on the door that Himiko answers as Izuku's mom pulls him into a tight hug. It's not often that his mother will show this much affection towards him, and he doesn't blame her for it. He does chalk it up to being something to do with her never getting an actual chance to raise him as she should have. So times like this one are memories he likes to treasure in his mind. And he hugs her back just as tight, knowing that he may not get to see her again for who knows how long. But the moment is ruined by Nito's surprised screech, "The Dragon King?" As Izuku and his mom pull apart, the boy doesn't miss the way his mom rolls her eyes in Nito's direction, and he lets out a little chuckle before he turns to meet face-to-face with Katsuki Bakugo. "Hello, Ms. Midoriya. I have already handed over the money to Mayor Shimura and would be happy to return home with Izuku now," the blonde says, all formal and not wasting a single second on actually making eye contact with his mother. No, his full undisputed attention is on none other than Izuku. That, combined with the way the king said his name, makes him shiver with excitement and anticipation of what his new life is going to be like. What being owned by the Dragon King will be like. Yes, of course. I've already said goodbye so that you two can be off now. Just stay safe, my little strawberry," Izuku's mom says, wiping a tear off her own face now. The crying thing runs in the family, definitely on his mother's side since he has never once seen Nito shed a tear. Katsuki nods his head, walking forth and offering his arm to Izuku. The greenette blushes as he links their arms together and Katsuki begins to lead them out of the house. "Goodbye, Midoriya." Himiko waves, giving him an encouraging smile. Tuya nods his head in approval, "We'll miss you." And with that, they exit the house and shut the door behind them. The reality of what is happening seems to snap into place at that very moment for Izuku as he feels a weight put onto his chest, his whole body tensing. The king growls beside him, "Calm down. I don't bite much." The words only settle him a little as Katsuki helps him onto the giant red dragon, Shudo happily chirping behind them about how excited he is to live at the palace as Katsuki takes his seat behind him. They burst into the sky with speed, the wind seeming to push air into Izuku's lungs and bring some kind of life back into his form as his back is flushed back against the blonde's front. He gulps audibly, shifting uncomfortably as Katsuki keeps unwavering hands on his hips to make sure he doesn't fall off the side of the dragon. "Loosen up a little, strawberry." Shudo yips from behind them, doing a loop-the-loop in the air and drawing up enough speed to now push ahead of them. Aijuru growls out something to the red and white dragon, making a mischievous smirk appear on Shudo's dragon face, one that has an inkling of doubt bubbling up in Izuku's stomach. "Sure. Let's race." Izuku hears Shudo say to Aijuru, making him seriously worried about what the two dragons are about to do. Especially since Katsuki just heard all of that, and doesn't seem too concerned with stopping them. So, next thing the greenette knows is they are bursting ahead with speed, making wind whip around them and his breaths literally being stolen from him before he can get enough oxygen. Soon enough, the castle is already in view, making Izuku start to hyperventilate at the realization of how fast they are actually going. And at the fact that Shudo has still managed to keep a few inches ahead of them, only urging Aijuru to go faster while Izuku mentally prays they will slow down. Izuku struggles to breathe and comes to the conclusion that he should probably mention so to Katsuki. Keikisichan. The nickname, one that he has no idea what has possessed him to say, slips out on its own accord, and Izuku is too focused on telling Katsuki he can't breathe to write the embarrassing mistake, "I can't breathe." He finally yells louder than the wind, pushing them into each other. The words Izuku says makes Katsuki pull that whistle up to his mouth again as genuine fear washes over his facial expression. Enough with the racing. You're killing us back here. Katsuki shouts angrily at the two dragons. They both seem to pout, but thankfully they slow their roll down to a nice and easy drift, one that doesn't make Izuku worried he is going to fry up all of his insides. Not long after, they are landing inside the castle walls next to what Izuku guesses is the dragon stables. Katsuki helps them both off before grabbing hold of Izuku's hand and beckoning the dragons to follow as they head into the stables. Izuku gets sweaty at the way their fingers are interwoven together, his face flushing completely red. Ah, Strawberry has a crush. Shudo teases Izuku, making the greenette squeak and pull his hand away from Katsuki's to hide his face. Shudo and Aijuro let out little dragon snickers at the shy display before Aijuro leads Shudo to an empty stall and they get themselves all situated. Come on, Deku, I want you to meet someone. Katsuki says, decidedly ignoring everything that just happened a couple seconds ago and opting to instead lead him over to a part of the huge stables that isn't housing any dragons. It's a small office space, and when they step inside, Izuku is met by the sight of a satyr. It's not a rare sight to see one, it's just that you don't see very many in LOV. Katsuki addressed the satyr as Siro, informing him that Izuku was to be his bride. Izuku waves softly to the black-haired guy, who must have been around the same age as them. It's nice to meet you, Siro. It's good to meet you as well, Prince. It hits Izuku then that he is no longer SLV. And with Katsuki's decision to marry him even if there was no ring to prove it yet, the king's words were as good as if there was one now gave him the title prince. He was a freaking prince. The idea of that makes him smile even bigger, his hand slightly brushing against Katsuki's as if to silently thank him for all of this kindness as they make their leave from the stables. Thankfully, Izuku was placed into quarters that he was not forced to share with Katsuki. Not that he was against or repulsed by the idea of his future husband, he still can't believe that's what Katsuki is to him, yet he just knows that he is not exactly ready for that kind of intimacy. He would much rather do those kinds of things once they learn a little bit more about one another. Yes, quality time, that was what they needed. But at the moment, Izuku was given time away from the king as he attended meetings and whatnot. Izuku was using this time to warm up to everything, specifically his two new maids and his royal guard. The first maid he had met was the one who had showed him to his room, Toru Hagakure. Hello, Prince. I am Toru Hagakure. I'm the one who will be escorting you to places when necessary. As for right now, I will be showing you to your bedroom. The girl is sort of bubbly with blonde-green hair and the most iridescent body and eyes he has ever seen. She has sharp ears, reminding him of an elf, but what seems to be jagged crystals poke out of her glass-looking skin at some places. So, as they finally stop in front of his new room, he asks, "Forgive me for asking, but what are you? You did come from land of Viridian, correct?" She asks right back, not bothering to answer his question. He nods his head despite his wanting to know what the heck she could possibly be, born and raised. That's odd then that you could not at least guess by my looks. I'm a crystal elf. Though I'm sure you never got very many there. We do prefer mountains and caves. I'm sure there must be at least 100 that live there. This information is somewhat new to Izuku, but he doesn't make any further comments on how he had no idea any crystal elves had made their way down to live in LOV. Well, in we go, she says, ushering him into his new room. It's elegant, with deep reds and bright golds. A giant king-sized bed in the very center of the room, and a chest that sits on the ground at the end. Ornate pictures hung about that are surely worthy of their place in the castle. A giant rug made out of what appears to be wolf fur, though Izuku isn't too confident in his identification. And a balcony that gives him an entire view of the sloping mountains, down to where he can kind of see his old home below. And the balcony is also significant in size. If Izuku had to guess, he would say it's likely so that dragons may come and go to see their owners as they please. Wow. It's absolutely beautiful. Izuku mumbles, twisting around in circles to really soak all the scenery in. Tour. Oh, thank goodness I got here on time. Or close enough, I guess. A woman says, rushing into the room with full-on armor and a sword slung at her hip area. Izuku gasps as he realizes he recognizes her. He just can't remember from where. But surely he had seen that pitch-black hair slicked back into a ponytail. Those extra pointy elf ears. That slim and fit body, even distinguishable through the heavy and thick armor. There was no way he could make up seeing her before on his own. I did expect you to already be here, but better here late than not at all. What kept you from coming on time, anyways? Toru questions her as the black-haired woman attempts to catch her breath. She had very obviously been running the whole way here, and seeing as they were now on the 5th floor, that had been a lot of running. Agony spotted an elf we didn't know right outside the castle entrance, one with the cane symbol. She tried to chase after it, but it got away. She reports, and the name of her dragon makes the situation all too clear to the Greenette now. You are the guard that spared me that night. Izuku exclaims, immediately slapping a hand over his mouth after the words slip from his lips. She chuckles breathlessly, nodding her head, yes. Yes, indeed, I am the guard. She offers a hand to him and he takes it to shake before letting go as she tells him her name. I am Momo Yaoyorozu, your official royal guard. This makes Izuku wonder if the same goes for Agony. As in, would Agony be Shudo's official guard? The thought of that seems wrong with how strong Shudo already is for a 7-year-old dragon, so he brushes that thought process away for the time being. Now, we are just waiting for Tsuyu. Toru clicks her tongue with a small smile, one that makes it seem like she only expected as much of the last girl to come introduce herself. Yes. But I must leave now. I have to relay the information about the unknown elf to Denki so that he can tell the king. Momo sighs, starting to turn as she waves goodbye. I'll be back soon, Prince Izuku. Don't get into too much trouble while I am not around. Her words are an obvious warning, one meaning that it wasn't hard to get into trouble around the castle. Izuku is left properly torn, knowing he wants to explore the place a little on his own, but also knowing he should heed her words. Oh, Izuku! Speaking of Denki, I think you will be glad to learn that he is a human as you are. The only one that resides in the castle. Except, of course, there is you now. Toru tells him, her eyes lighting up and showing him that she seems to already deeply care for him. Izuku gets the feeling that she's the kind of person to be easily manipulated and then tossed away to be forgotten, and at that thought, his soul aches for her. Oda, when can I meet him, then? Izuku questions, genuinely interested in getting to see what kind of person Denki was, plus he would likely be one of the few people Izuku could relate to here. Likely tonight when you dine with King Katsuki. He is his royal guard after all. Toru replies, giving him a smile that speaks millions of volumes. She just seems like the kind of person that others would misunderstand. And with first-hand experience of that, Izuku wants to just wrap his arms around her and wash away any pain she has ever felt. He almost feels brotherly to her. Suddenly, the doors burst open and another maid comes in, immediately taking Izuku's right hand and shaking it aggressively. Hello. I am Tsuyu Azui, your main maid, reporting to you for anything you may need my service in. The green-haired girl says, and Izuku notes the way she seems to have skin made of a bark-like substance. Her hair is kind of like leaves, or perhaps grass. And she is wearing clothes made out of plants. It clicks for him that she must be a nymph. Are you a dryad? He asks, only because he wouldn't want to assume and end up being sorely mistaken. Luckily, she nods her head, saving him from any embarrassment. And you are human. The only other human I have ever met is Denki. All the humans usually flock to live in LOV and we never get a chance to see very many. She says in a cheerful voice, her face bright as she smiles at him. This is a very exciting experience for me, and I look forward to helping you as much as I possibly can. Just say the words and I will be there for you, Prince. Izuku feels modest at the amount of loyalty she is already showing, and he can't help but feel very content with his 2 new maids. He could really get used to this life. A life of luxury. A life of knowing he will get 3 meals a day. A life knowing he won't be whipped. He sighs quietly under his breath, forcing his smile a little now as he watches Tsuyu and Toru talk back and forth absent-mindedly. Though he may certainly be in a much better place now, he should really never forget what he has been through. He should never forget why this all means so much to him. He realizes now that maybe marrying the king won't be too bad. If it means he will be given a chance to make a difference in the world, then he is willing to try his hardest to keep his place. Maybe he could even end slavery. Or the discrimination of being attracted to your own gender. As of right now, only royal members and those not in poverty may marry or be sexually active with their same gender. Maybe he could stop the cruelty of giving such harsh punishments like ones that he was given his whole life. Maybe he could even make better connections with other kingdoms so that they could ally together and get all of this stuff solved faster. When will the king be back from his meetings? Izuku asks both of his maids. Subconsciously at that moment, he promises himself that he will treat them with the utmost respect no matter how low on the social pyramid they must be compared to him. He has lived in one lower and less respected than them. He knows the pain and would never even dare to think of inflicting that same kind of pain on another. He should be done right about now. If he is not, we should at least go try to find Momo and Denki. Toru says, already beginning to head for the door as Tsuyu beckons him to follow them. They walk through the castle halls and Izuku gets a really good chance to just bask in the splendor of it all. The architecture has obviously been well thought out, with love and meaning pressed into each sculpt of the tiny details in just some cravings on the walls. Each one tells a story. Tsuyu finally says, stopping next to one carving that Izuku had been especially admiring. Toru turns to inspect it too, and Izuku stops to listen to what the two have to say about this carving. When Izuku looks at it, he feels deep pain. The carving seems to be done fast and with shaky hands, as if someone had been trying to keep themselves from falling apart as they chiseled the story into the walls. It shows a man flying on a dragon alongside a woman flying on her own dragon. Down below them is a raging war of what seems to be their own people and some foreign kingdom's legion. He looks closer at the guy and finally notices the crown atop his head, and it's then that he knows the reason of why this one seems to be pulling so much at his heartstrings. This was the day King Masaru died, isn't it? Izuku whispers his question, not being able to hold back the single tear that rolls down his face. This event happened 8 years ago. Queen Mitsuki then went on to rule over the kingdom all on her own for another 5 years before Katsuki took to the throne at the crisp age of 13. Izuku processes this, keeping in mind that Katsuki has been in so much pain, just as himself. You are right that day was miserable for everyone. I still remember how hopeless the whole kingdom felt. I believe it even affected Love deeply as well. We are so gracious due to his dragon, Serene. She ended up slaughtering the leader of our enemies, the lava ogres, and ending it then and there. Tsuyu explains, seeming to wilt a bit like any plant would when it doesn't get enough water. Toru appears to be no better, her head held low as her originally really bright skin seems to dim a little. Where is Queen Mitsuki then? Izuku finds himself asking, his curiosity making him wonder why she ever had to hand over the throne to Katsuki when most wait till they are at least 20 years old to rule. I am right here. A deep and female voice rakes out from behind them. They all swivel on the ball of their feet, Izuku's eyes wide as he stares face to face with the legendary Queen Mitsuki. She smirks, recognizing his reverence for her title and place. I presume you are Izuku Midoriya, right? Izuku nods quickly at her question and she continues. My son chose well. I remember how much he used to talk of you after he first met you. She seems to recall, which surprises Izuku because last time he checked they only just met for the first time yesterday. As for your questions, I can guess already that you are a bright boy. Your knowledge on the kingdom, even if you have not been supplied it with your role as a SLV, is immaculate. I trust that you plan to rule this kingdom someday just as my husband ruled it. Her words slice right into him, hitting him in the heart with how deep he knows they are. She is comparing him to her own husband, and that not only puts so much pressure on Izuku, but also makes him want to strive for greatness. Yes, Your Highness. It would be an honor to one day serve this glorious kingdom as great as King Masaru did. He answers, bowing his head slightly to her, which makes her now smile fondly. She flicks a hand at them as if to dismiss them as she begins to turn. By the way, my very impatient son is awaiting you and your maid's arrival in the dinner hall. A guest from another kingdom is here today. I suggest you go meet her. It is imperative that you make a good first impression. She will be very important to your future. And on that somewhat ominous note, she finally begins to walk away from the three of them. Izuku can't help but feel he is still being ever closely watched by her regalness as she turns the corner at the end of the hall. She makes herself seem all cowing, and Izuku will infinitely buy into that, no matter if it's false or not. We should really get going. If the queen is true to her words, then I believe Princess Ochako is here along with Lady Nijire. Plus, this could be your chance to be introduced to Denki. Toru points out, starting to lead both Tsuyu and Izuku to the dinner hall. Izuku waits at the huge, closed door along with his maids as the guards announce their arrival on the other side. Only seconds later, the doors are being thrown open and both Tsuyu and Toru are bustling in to start chatting with everyone, which is only Katsuki, Momo, a person Izuku thinks is Denki, and two women he has never met before. Izuku stays frozen, staring wide-eyed into the intimidating room full of the idea of socializing. He can't move until his eyes connect to a young girl around the same age as him. She gives him a smile and waves to him. Somehow, her kindness gives him enough courage to finally enter and take a seat. He is about to sit down next to Momo, which would put him between her and Toru, but he's stopped by Katsuki. "Deku, you're supposed to sit next to me," he simply states, drawing everybody's undivided attention as Izuku turns a pretty shade of red. Tsuyu whispers to Toru, he looks like a strawberry," making Izuku hyper-aware of the state he is in as he rises and walks over to the other side of Momo, now next to Katsuki, where he is at the head of the very long table. The other guy who looks remarkably like a human and Izuku is now positive is Denki goes to take his seat in the original place that the Greenette had attempted sitting down in. With the seating all sorted out, Katsuki turns towards Izuku with what the Greenette can very obviously interpret as a frown. Izuku wonders if he has done something wrong, or if Katsuki just realized how insane he was to pick a SLV to be his bride and knows now that Izuku is nowhere near remotely made for this kind of thing. But instead, he begins to inform Izuku who everyone is as if he doesn't look like he's about to explode. "That is Denki of the Kaminari family, my royal guard." Katsuki huffs when speaking about the other blonde. It sounds like an annoyed brother who can't help but love and hate someone at the same time. Izuku holds back a chuckle at the lopsided grin Denki gives purposely to get rise out of the king. "I'm also his bestest friend, aren't I?" Denki is ignored by Katsuki, yet it doesn't make his cockiness deflate 1 ounce. Katsuki clears his throat before turning to the two women on his other side. Katsuki nods his head to them, allowing them to introduce themselves. The one sitting right across from Izuku, the same one that smiled at him, reaches her hands across the table and places them in Izuku's own hands. "Hello, Izuku. I am Ochako of the Uraraka family, also the princess of the Witch Kingdom. And I come bearing gifts." She squeals as she pulls her hands away, revealing 2 stones in each of his hands. They are weightless to the touch and each are engraved with runes that must be linked to magic. "This one," she points to the one in his left hand, which is red, "should always keep the hope of victory in the hearts of your kingdom." "That's very generous, Ochako. Really, we don't need the other one," Katsuki tries to say as if he is worried he will owe her something in return. But she shakes her head. "No, please, I insist you have them both. They weren't that hard to find and I made the runes with your new bride in mind." Izuku side-eyes the blonde, catching his attention. One tiny turn down of Izuku's lips and Katsuki is rolling his eyes. He sighs, "Alright, fine. Continue." She smiles hugely as she points to the next one. It is slightly smaller than the red one and is glowing in eerie blue instead of looking painted on like the red one. This one should help calm panic attacks. His eyes widen at what she says, and he finds Katsuki, Momo, and Denki eyeing her a bit suspiciously. She blinks before rushing to explain herself. "Oh, I didn't really plan out what they would end up as. Remember, I said I made them with him in mind. That it's like magic channeling of the soul. It's beautiful and just flows right out of you. I could teach you sometime, King Katsuki. If anything, this would definitely be in regular use with him. He just is often riddled by nightmares of everything that has happened to him. Most times he wakes up in a cold sweat with his heart racing, his lungs being strictly defiant of his need for air, and all of the scars he has acquired over the years burning like a searing reminder. Yes, this stone would serve him well. Katsuki nods his head absent-mindedly before Izuku sighs and finally looks over to find out who the last person is. I am Lady Nijire of the Hado family. I am so thankful to be meeting you today, Prince, she says, running a hand through her blue hair as she gives him a kind smile. He smiles right back. It's a pleasure to meet you as well. And with that, Momo finally catches the king's attention, her voice sounding rather urgent. Your Majesty, I spotted an unknown elf near the castle entrance. Katsuki rolls his eyes at her words. So? You chased him off, didn't ya? He says, beginning to drink some wine from his golden cup. Izuku peers down at his own glass and registers that he too has wine. He's never before drank alcohol, let alone get drunk. Katsuki must notice his indecision directed at his drink as the blonde snaps his fingers and a maid comes out to replace his drink with water. Izuku smiles a bit, glancing up at the king and blushing when he sees him smiling back. Well, yes, but. Momo interrupts their moment, stealing Katsuki's attention once more as she continues her explanation. She was wearing a black cloak with the volcano symbol on her back. Everyone gasps except for Izuku, and that's only because the Greenette has no idea what this means for them and the kingdom. So the lava ogres want to play with dragons, huh? Nijire hisses, her voice sounding sick compared to how kind it was originally. Then Izuku really takes in what she said and his mouth falls open in shock. Lava ogres. As in the ones that killed King Masaru. And the elves might be working with them. At least the cave elves are, that seemed to be what she was. Momo clarifies, biting her bottom lip as she begins to seem agitated. The scariest part of this all is that Katsuki hasn't said a single word since Momo told him about it being King Kane. Listen, Kats, we need to at least send a letter to King Kane to ask if he has means of waging war on us. Denki speaks up. His voice wavers a little, but he doesn't hesitate to state the obvious. Katsuki grumbles, I know. But I was hoping to at least FNG get settled in with Deku before I had to deal with any more political shit. He bangs his fist on the table hard, and Izuku suddenly has the great urge to calm him down. He wants to grab the blonde up in his embrace, cradle his head in his arms, smooth his hands all over his milky skin. Trace every scar and stare into those gorgeous crimson orbs. Izuku didn't even feel that attracted to him yet, but he surely knew he had to start feeling that way. And it wasn't seeming too hard with how perfect Katsuki seemed to be for him. Would you like us to escort the prince back to his room and serve him dinner there, my king? Toru asks, keeping her head bowed in respect to the blonde. Katsuki nods, yes. I would hate to have to discuss such stressing matters in front of him when he has just arrived. Plus, with what Ochako said, it sounds like he easily gets anxiety. Izuku can't help but snark back at him for that. Hey! At least I don't have anger issues. Everyone's mouths fall ajar as Katsuki's eyes seem to ignite with fire. Anger issues. Case in point. But also, Izuku was FING screwed. Or was he? Just as Izuku began to subtly back away, the flames in his eyes pucker out, a frown returning to his face as he says, we will discuss that later, Deku. For now, please see yourself to your room, and make sure you eat enough. Yes, Kaken. Izuku squeaks out, rising from his seat as Toru and Tsuyu snap out of their disbelief daze and stand with him. Katsuki stops them with his voice just as they are about to leave. Denki, go with them and guard Deku for the time being. I need to have Momo here since she was the witness. Yes, of course, Kats. Denki answers, bounding up and out of his seat and joining the three already beginning to leave. As they are walking out, Izuku catches one last sentence from Momo. Agony is also a witness. We should speak with her later, Your Majesty. It then hits like a boulder to the chest that he hasn't talked to Shudo in a while and he really misses his dragon. As the door shuts behind them, Izuku turns on the ball of his feet and bursts into question, may I go see my dragon before I am to head back to my quarters and have dinner? Denki shrugs, all too clearly saying he doesn't mind coming along. And neither Toru nor Tsuyu object or right out say no, so he begins to make his way to the stables instead. As soon as Izuku enters the stables, he is met by the sight of Shuto in his human form, which surprises him as much as it makes him happy. Shuto, when in human form, still keeps miniature red and white wings on his back, a dragon tail, horns on his head and along his spine, and random spots of white or red scales. Shuto waves enthusiastically to him, beckoning him, Denki, Toru, and Tsuyu over to greet them. Once they make it over, Izuku is also brought to shock as he spots what must be Aijiro in his human form. Aijiro looks a whole lot buffer than Shuto, that's one thing he has to admit. "Hey, Strawberry, have you kissed the king yet?" Shuto asks with large and imploring heterochromatic eyes. Izuku flushes red, and Shuto giggles. "What a strawberry! I haven't kissed anyone and you know that, Shuto?" Izuku exclaims, trying hard to drown out the laughs from his maids and Denki. So he opts to focus on something else, that something being the fact that Shuto is staying in human form. For a while. "How are you doing that, Shuto?" Izuku questions, his curiosity seeming to take over his brain as completely forgets the embarrassment he just felt only moments before. "Doing what? Oh, you mean how I'm just naturally awesome? Yeah, I was just born that way." Shuto replies, way too cocky for his own DM good. "No, of course not that show." Izuku reprimands, throwing his hands on his waist. "I meant how are you staying human for so long?" Shuto's eyes light up. "Aijiro taught me how to stay this way for however long I want. I can come into the castle with you now." He smiles proudly, his chest puffing up as if to flaunt how great he is. Izuku sighs. "Good, you can come with me and eat dinner with us for." "Yay!" He cheers, bouncing over to stand next to Izuku and flap his wings a couple times to steady himself. "Heh, still a little wobbly on the legs." He comments to Izuku, giving him a smile. "Would you like to join us, Aijiro?" Denki asks, turning towards the bigger dragon human. He nods, his gruff yet also light voice surprising Izuku. "I would love to come with. Is Katsuki to be expected as well?" "We're not sure yet," Toru answers, capturing his attention as he just stares. He's a bit intimidating, and Izuku would be lying if he said he wasn't a little scared. What a shame. Could have had a bro night. Although that would mean we would have to kick you and Sue out, so maybe this is for the best. And just like that, Izuku is no longer worried. Aijiro was just concerned about whether they would get all hang out like men at a slumber party. All the power to him for being so manly, in his own special way. After spending the whole night stuffing their faces with delectable food and then all falling into a food coma, the others begin to disperse from his room. Shuto and Aijiro leave first, waving as they walk out onto the balcony and turn back into dragons as they leap into the sky and rocket down towards the dragon stables, where Siro must surely be worried sick, wondering where the hell the two dragons are since no one ever really told him they would be leaving with them. Next to leave is Toru. "I really should get going. I don't actually live in the palace, though I live in a house on the outskirts of the dragon village closest to it. Tonight was fun, Prince. Thank you for being ever so kind to someone which the likes of myself." She grins, waving goodbye as she exists. Through the door. "I will leave now too. I suppose you would like to sleep at some point anyhow." Tsuyu chuckles, departing from his room along with Toru. This leaves Izuku and Denki. The two humans. They both just stare at each other for a while without speaking a single word. Until Denki breaks the silence and stirring the night air around them. "I'm actually quite surprised Katsuki never came to join us for dinner. He must be having trouble coming up with what he should write to King Kane. It's not his strong suit, after all. Say, do you enjoy writing?" "Yes. A lot, actually. I enjoy taking notes on everything. I like to specifically study how different creatures vary from each other." Izuku whispers back. He stays quiet for a single beat before he speaks once more. "I don't think I'll have any trouble writing about you and Momo. And Toru, Tsuyu, Princess Ochako, and Lady Nijire should be simple enough. But what exactly is Katsuki? I can't figure it out. He has all the attributes and the look of a human. Yet he builds up enough muscle to pass as a centaur if he had back horse legs. And his eyes, they looked like they were actually on fire. You caught all of that?" The voice makes him jump as his eyes dart to the door, where they meet directly with Katsuki's own eyes. You're right. I'm not exactly human. I'm only, sort of half-human. I can use magic, and yes, I put on muscle far faster and better than any regular old human, no offense to you too. And if I really try hard enough, I can breathe fire. Katsuki explains, his side against the frame of the door as he crosses his arms over his big pecs, making his necklace jingle. So, what are you? Izuku ushers out his question quietly, as if the whole world hangs upon his words and the answer he wishes to receive ever so quickly. I guess that's just for you to figure out, huh, Deku? He teases, his signature frown ticking up and stretching into a tantalizing smirk. One that has Izuku imaging himself being pushed down onto a bed. Underneath those strong arms and between muscled thighs as they rock together. Izuku blushes even though he is aware nobody can read his mind. It's just a reflex that definitely has gotten him into trouble before. Like right now, for example. What ya daydreaming about over there, Deku? Katsuki drawls with an unmistakably husky voice. One that speaks of his returned desire for the greenette. Izuku thinks they're about to be at each other's throats, for not only the way Izuku was rude to Katsuki earlier, but for the lust they feel for each other right now, for the way that those flames once more flicker in his eyes as if burning and eating Izuku alive from across the room. But all of that is interrupted by a very much still here Denki who coughs loud enough to get both of their attention. I think we should all go to bed. No, at least let me leave while I still have my innocence. I don't want to see you guys hate F-. Hate F-. The words echo around Izuku's head as if a toy train going on a limited supply of train tracks in a circle. Were they actually about to hate F-? Or was there something more that they both wanted from each other and understood about one another? There had to be genuine attraction under all those layers of other emotions that resided within themselves for the other. Right? We were not about to hate F-. This nerd can't take that kind of shit. Katsuki growls at Denki, but it doesn't seem to calm the now fidgeting guard. Oh great. Even better, you guys were about to make love to each other in front of me, Black? Denki cringes, rushing to the door, and how disgraceful, after only knowing each other for 2 days. 2 days. He repeats himself for emphasis, slamming the door shut behind him. Katsuki rolls his eyes. Sorry, Deku, I gotta go chase after this doofus. Sleep well, Prince. He says before leaving as well. Izuku is left in the silence. Or so he thinks. A moment later he can hear yelling outside his door somewhere down the hall. It's definitely the blonde's voice. Denki, we weren't going golf at all. I'm effing honorable, I'd wait till we're married. Now Denki starts yelling as well, says the guy that has already lost his V-card. OH.SO Katsuki had been sexually active with others before Izuku. So there might just be chance that Izuku would be just another F-toy to him, right? No, I haven't. Stop making shit up. Besides, that's rich coming from the person who actually has. Katsuki roars back, and Izuku is confused on who he should believe. Because perhaps Katsuki knew Izuku could hear them and lied just now so that Izuku felt better about this all. Izuku shuts down his brain when his eyes drift over to the very comfortable-looking bed. Another time, he promises himself out loud, being way too tired to think it to himself now. He walks over to the bed and crawls into it, pulling from his pocket the 2 stones Princess Ochako gifted him. He really hopes she didn't leave to return home. He would like to see and talk to her again. Her and Lady Nijire, they both seem so pleasant and sweet. Which reminds him of his mom. Ugh, he hopes his mom is faring well knowing that her son is far away and going to get married to the Dragon King. He also hopes Shimura is kind to Himiko and Tuya. Those two were so nice to him when he still lived in LOV that he can't help but feel partial to them. Though his new maids are ever pleasant as well, and he could never ask for anyone better. And he is glad that Shudo is learning from Aijiro. Living here will really be good for his dragon. Only problem is that the looming threat of King Kane and the lava ogres. Plus, are they really teamed up with cave elves? And are they planning to start a war with Katsuki? Will he and Katsuki be able to live through it if they do? The following days are filled with tension on whether King Kane will return the notion of Katsuki's letter with one of his own. Each minute has Izuku and Katsuki brought even further apart as the blonde becomes more agitated and begins to snap at any given moment. Due to his sudden mood swings, Denki suggested that Izuku stayed at a safe distance for the time being. Only problem was, Izuku couldn't get the thought of him and the king hate Fang out of his mind. The daydreams riddled his waking thoughts and manifested in his dreams wilder than he could ever imagine. And yet, he had only known the blonde and lived in his castle for 4 days just about. He couldn't shake it no matter how hard he tried. Newsflash, he wasn't trying his hardest. That let's just say a tiny part of him that was horny and sick had started to crawl its way up his throat, and it had no plans of being swallowed back down. The longer Izuku was denied physical affection of any kind with the king, the more bold he got. This tended to make his other personalities come out as well. Like, for instance, his sass, his stubbornness, his competitiveness. It was the perfect ingredients to stir the potion pot. And Izuku was hoping to brew up something big. And it seemed he wasn't the only one that was okay with this. Izuku, I am very aware I haven't known you long, but I can't help but feel that look on your face spells trouble. What is it? Lady Nijire asks one day as they play chess, Izuku only absent-mindedly bearing her. He hopes there's no sore feelings when they are done, since he really isn't giving it his all and she is just atrocious at chess. For heaven's sake, her queen was out in the open like she had no cares in the freaking world. You caught onto that, huh? Izuku mumbles, moving a knight forward and making her furrow her brows as he now has one of her knights trapped between two of his. She nods her head, opting to instead move the queen once more into the open. Yaoyorosa mentioned to me, Princess Ochako, and King Katsuki, that you might be a bit of a troublemaker. She snickers a little at the idea, making Izuku blush wildly. What exactly did she say? Izuku stutters over his words, slipping up as he now moves one of his knights into a compromising position in his hastiness. She had just informed us on how you had come on multiple occasions, close to the castle entrance. So, is it true? Does it really matter now that I live here? Besides, how did Kaken react? Izuku diverts her question with one of his own as she moves her knight now and moves his knight off the board. He sighs but isn't too concerned with her only having her one knight left, the king and the queen, while he had multiple more to spare. He found it ever amusing. I was quite enchanted by the way he chuckled at your antics. You should have seen him yourself. The way Nijire says it kind of has Izuku on edge, but he tries to push that jealous part of himself out as he truly listens to her words. The king thought he was cute for it? Or at least entertaining. You've gotten to talk to him last when? She suddenly asks, seeming to lose all interest in chess as she notes her inevitable defeat. Izuku is a bit deflated at how fast she has given up, but he also suspects she is used to being a natural pro at many things and doesn't like the ones that she isn't good at. He can't blame her if she has grown up to make her ego that way. Which only reminds him of how rude he was to Katsuki with the anger issues comment. Especially when the blonde had actually been trying to be sincere, and think of how Izuku didn't handle stress well. He really should find a chance to apologize. It's the least he could do considering everything the king has done for him. I haven't talked to him much, just fleeting moments in the hall. Why is it that you ask? The greenette begins to reset the board as Nijire stands and waits for him to finish up. Once Izuku is done, they are both making their way out of the currently unoccupied ballroom and slip into one of the many halls of the castle. He acts differently around you. And just generally when people talk about you while he is present to hear. I have a theory of sorts. She inquires, giving him a warming smile as they continue to walk in perfect synchrony. Well, don't keep me waiting. I'm open to hearing all of the people I am acquainted witch's thoughts. Izuku encourages, his eyes held tentatively to her face now as she waits just one beat longer for further suspension. I believe he is truly in love with you. And I don't mean that I doubted he liked you, obviously did if he took you to be his bride. Her words slowly register in Izuku's mind, and she realizes this and decides to continue her explaining. Oh dear, that did come out all wrong. What I mean is that I thought his mother forced him to take you, but it can't be possible. Also, I really think you should try talking to him. He is insufferable at the moment. Izuku chuckles breathlessly at her words, her own laughter seeming to fill the echoes in the halls as she catches on to how much she just rambled. She hits her shoulder playfully to his, and he feels elated that she thinks of them having a close enough relationship to do those kinds of things. Let's just go find the hothead already and hopefully cheer him up with a little strawberry like you. She teases, turning them down a different path that Izuku had not yet gone down. He takes a moment to try and memorize where they are in the castle so that he can add this to his mind map of the ginormous place. Where exactly are we going? Izuku asks as they start to near a door. She gives him a sneaky-looking side eye as she grins. Just trust me. All you need to do is burst through those doors yelling your little nickname for him. She seems confident in this as she urges him forward by the excited look in her blue eyes. He nods his head, though hesitant as he does, he still begins to creep forward before changing to a complete and all-out run as he throws the door open and yells at the very top of his lungs in a voice he purposely makes sound like he is in dismay to scare the king, Kakin. But then he is brought to a real yelp as he trips over someone's foot and lands face first into the floor. He can hear the outrageously loud laughs from Nijire as he doesn't even attempt to move one single muscle. A deep and unmistakable voice from above him rumbles out, "Do you plan on picking yourself off my bedroom floor anytime soon, Deku?" Izuku feels butterflies flurl in his stomach and he groans, "Not, I think I'll stay and rot here." He flips his head over so that now his right cheek is pressed against ground as he mumbles out, "My face hurts a lot." Shitty Deku. Your nose is bleeding." Katsuki suddenly gasps as he drops to his knees and slowly begins to help Izuku up while he holds the greenette's head back carefully. Nijire's laughs have promptly stopped, and she is very conveniently making her escape down the hall. "We'll be talking about this later, Lady Nijire. You're lucky I care too much about this demon nerd." He yells after her as she turns the corner and completely bolts away like she's being chased by her inner monsters. Izuku doesn't really blame her all that much. "Come on to death. Let's get you some tissues." Katsuki practically coos down at him, at least as close to a coo as the blonde can manage with how much he is yelling all the DMN time. He rises with Izuku in his arms and carries him off to his very large bathroom like as big as his mother's house and sits the greenette down on the counter. On the freaking marble counter. As blood drips from his nose and Izuku tries hard to keep it from seeping into his clothes unsuccessfully with his hands covering his face. The blood trails down and somehow manages to pool a bit on the counter, making Izuku feel like a burden. Izuku must have been overthinking so hard again that or he is dizzy from the blood loss that he has begun doing his little muttering thing again because Katsuki snaps him out of it. "Hey! I don't effing hate you. Where the hell did you get that absurd idea from, nerd?" Katsuki barks at him as he softly replaces Izuku's hands with balled-up tissues. Izuku can't help it as fat tears begin to roll down his cheeks, clinging to his chin and mixing with the dried blood there which only makes him want to cry more. "But I was mean to you. I said you had anger issues after everything you have done for me. And now I'm getting blood all over your bathroom counter, and I must be the worst bride ever." Katsuki's eyes widen as he covers Izuku's mouth. "Don't say that. You are amazing," Katsuki shouts, rolling his eyes. Another round of tears in the forms of waterfalls come from Izuku as Katsuki sighs with a tired smile while he begins to clean the counter and the greenette's clothing. Although it doesn't Katsuki long to realize the clothes are too soaked through and likely ruined. "You need to change, these won't feel very comfortable anymore," Katsuki tells him, trying to use his sweetest voice possible so that Izuku won't downward spiral into whatever the heck he was ranting on about a couple seconds ago. Izuku gazes down at his reddened clothes, sighing, "My mother made me these." Katsuki understood sentimental attachment to things to some degrees, so he could make a good guess with Izuku's past why he would be so upset at ruining the outfit. "Maybe we can go to visit her sometime so that she can make you new ones?" Katsuki offers, giving him a sweet smile. Izuku's eyes must shine brighter than the sun as he throws his arms around the blonde and hugs him tight, before realizing how disrespectful that must be and retracting his arms at record speeds. Thank you." Izuku mumbles shyly, his face red before he goes on to say his next words, "And I am sorry for what I said to you at dinner. It was really prejudice of me considering we had only known each other for around 2 days. I still believe we have much to learn about one another. Deku. It's okay. I so have anger issues, and I kind of was poking fun at you for having anxiety, and that was so effed up on so many levels. Katsuki shoots back, as if trying to make him seem like the bad one here. Nah. Kaken, you don't have to say that when you didn't say anything that wasn't true. I'm not mad about it, I'm actually glad you thought of the fact I didn't do well with stress. Izuku points out, trying to keep a smile on his face as he checks his nose and realizes it has stopped bleeding. No. I've been a complete a-hole my entire life, I really am the one to blame here. Katsuki hisses, taking the bloodied tissues from Izuku and throwing them out for the greenette. Why can't you just take the apology you deserve, Kaken? Izuku snipes, starting to get annoyed at this back-and-forth conversation that is obviously going nowhere. Why can't you understand that I'm the fucker who bought you and technically forced you into this, huh, Deku? That's effed up. He clarifies, making Izuku's eyes dart away in embarrassment. Katsuki notices the mistake immediately. Deku, I didn't mean it like that. You kind of did though, didn't you? It's how everyone talks about me. Like I'm just some object. It's okay if you can't help yourself either, I won't hold that against you, Kaken. Izuku decides in a voice that evokes no further argument and is also so full of hopeless acceptance at the same time. But Katsuki is not only the king of dragons, but the king of fights too. Absolutely not. I will not stoop to the level of those fuckib BSRDs who have mistreated you. You are a person and you deserve the right of people acknowledging that. Katsuki growls out, suddenly throwing the greenette into his arms bridal style as he carries him out of the bathroom and back into his large room. He lays Izuku on the bed and the greenette's heart starts racing 1,000,000 miles per second. With that in mind, Izuku gets an idea. I still believe I owe you a proper apology, Kaken. Izuku says, trying to hide his tiny smirk as Katsuki turns and digs through some of his drawers. He comes back out with pajamas and hands them to Izuku. Here, wear these. No. You don't owe me anything, so leave it be. But I really do, Izuku needs this to be perfect, so he begins to strip into the pajamas before he says his next words. Katsuki is still turned away as he digs around some more, likely for his own night clothes. So while Izuku is still halfway through getting undressed, his shirt already thrown over his head and slowly pushing his pants down, he whispers, "How would you like me to repay you for everything?" The blonde completely stills and Izuku thinks he has stepped over the kine until he can see the bright pink flush over his neck and the greenette grins knowingly. You doing all right over there, Kaken? Izuku teases, finally letting his pants drop to the floor with the loud clinking of his belt. Katsuki jumps a little at the sound and Izuku has to hold in a quiet chuckle from escaping past his lips. Katsuki turns very, very slowly, an angry look plastered to his face. Deku! Is all he can rasp out in a menacing growl. Izuku begins to shake a bit as he contemplates shoving the pajama pants quickly on. But one look down at the pants in his hands has Katsuki's own eyes following that and still drooping even lower to stare directly at Izuku's very telling hard-on. Katsuki chuckles darkly, "You like it when I'm dominating, strawberry?" How had this whole situation completely flipped onto him? Now Katsuki suddenly held all the power, and any Izuku had built up went flying out the freaking window. It was unfair how much Katsuki's crimson orbs made the greenette want to squirm. How much he craved to be touched by him, yet he decidedly disliked his personality at the same time. You don't need to answer, Deku, I can tell that how much I terrify you, yet how much I make you want to beg to be taken in a sinful way by me. Izuku wished he could just deny it all. But that would be a blatant lie, and Izuku didn't do those. So he stood there like an idiot with his hard pee dripping and Katsuki with that same favorable flames in his eyes again. What the hell really was Katsuki anyways? Shouldn't Izuku have tried to learn stuff like that first before trying to anger then stuck the king into hate effing him to death? Denki's words get to your head, Deku? Because I know you can't handle it. Don't ask for it again. Katsuki huffs out, finally turning to tear his eyes away from the greenette. But Izuku isn't giving up that easy. He tries to reach a hand out to keep the blonde from returning to his drawers when instead he slips and falls onto his knees. Good, even better. Now he is looking up at the King of Dragons with puppy dog eyes held down by fat tears and these very words slipping from between his plump lips. Please? Katsuki's eyes turn 50 shades darker with deep red flames, a devilish smirk stretching across his face as his sharp teeth pokes out over his bottom lip, a husky leaving his throat and not going unnoticed by the greenette. This was a call for war. Izuku planned on being victorious in every matter of it. What exactly are you asking for, Deku? Katsuki drawls in a heavy voice, making Izuku's heart race rapidly. The greenette knows now that Katsuki is purposely trying to tease the words out of him to make him embarrassed. He wasn't going to let it work. Not if it meant it would only jibe the blonde even more of the upper hand. Katsuki! Denki throws the doors out of his path and comes bursting into the room. His eyes race between Katsuki and Izuku and he pauses. What the hell were you two doing? Izuku bounces up back onto his feet, blushing wildly. Katsuki has a shameful look plastered to his face as he side-eyes the greenette while simultaneously looking towards the ground. Deku was just being annoying. Katsuki settles on, making Izuku's mouth fall slack open. Because how dare he say that when moments ago Izuku was convinced they were actually about to F-dash. I wouldn't say I was being annoying. If anything, you were being a prick. Izuku bites out, still blushing but more out of anger than anything else now. Katsuki scoffs. Wow. That's fresh coming from you. Izuku completely turns to him, raising himself up onto his tippy toes so that he can get in the blonde's face. At least I'm actually putting an effort into having a relationship with you. You're so self-centered that you can't even see that I am not in the position right now to build a relationship with you. Know your place, Deku. Katsuki roars in Izuku's face. Izuku ducks away from the scrutiny, memories flooding into his mind of Shimura shouting at him. Of his ex-master always reminding Izuku what his worth was according to what he was born into being. And this caused the greenette's chest to heave and his heart to pound. Katsuki notices the change right away, his face changing to one of torture? Izuku, you know I didn't mean it like that. I meant that I rather wait for a time when I can give you my full, undivided attention like you deserve, but the greenette cuts him off. No. I believe I've heard enough. I know exactly what you meant. He hisses, trying to keep from spilling tears down his cheeks as he rushes for the door. But Denki stops him with a firm hand to his chest. The guard raises a brow as he notices Izuku's beating heart, but he doesn't comment any further as he sighs. As much as I know you two hate each other right now, the news I have concerns you as much as it does the king. You must hear this, Izuku. Denki says, his voice wavering a bit as if he can't even fully prepare himself for something he has already been informed of. Izuku shakes out the rage inside of him and doesn't turn to look Katsuki in the eye as he stays in his place and lets the tension leave his body. Speak, Denki. He ushers out quietly. King Kane sent a stone elf to the castle. Denki answers, Izuku gazing down to note the way the other human's hands shake as he says it. It makes him wonder what the hell has the bubbly guard acting in such a skittish way. So? Where's the letter? Katsuki growls out, stomping up to Denki as he appears to wait to be handed one. But Denki shakes his head slowly. No letter, Katsuki. The elf said that King Kane is looking for a dragon that we seem to have custody of. He's willing to fight for it. What the F-dash? Katsuki barks, scaring Izuku into finally looking at him. The greenette expects rage to be there. He wants to see strength and look that means Katsuki will be ready to meet King Kane fist for fist. But instead, all he sees is disbelief and fear. It hits Izuku then along with confusion and fear of his own that King Kane is still the man that killed Katsuki's father. That even if Katsuki may come off as this all-powerful, unbashfully confident, and war-hungry king, that he's still just the 15-year-old boy who lost his father and had to begin ruling a kingdom when he was 13. And if Katsuki is distracted by trying to make well with Izuku, then he might make a huge mistake when it comes to having a war with the lava ogres and stone elves. Even as Izuku has so much fury moving through his body right now for the blonde, he also feels so much pain for everything the king has had to face. Katsuki actually had a chance to get to know his father before he was torn away from his life. Katsuki had to face the duties of being a king all on his own while his mother was likely still in mourning. He had to be strong for his kingdom when he probably felt like falling apart. Izuku wants to apologize. He wants to wrap Katsuki in his arms and tell him he will be strong too. That he won't lose it on him again when times are so urgent. That he will stand beside him and help him through it all. But he's also so terrified he already blew it. That he'll be sent back to live in land of Viridian. Did you take this elf prisoner? Katsuki asks, breaking through Izuku's thoughts. It suddenly dawns on the Greenette that they should also be wondering what dragon is King Kane after. Because that seems like it should be the most important information here. He got away while we were all still in shock. Did he give on information on the dragon they were looking for? Izuku questions before Denki can finish, bringing the eyes of both the guard and the king to him. Denki nods as his lip quivers. Well, Izuku urges, impatient. I would imagine he's hungry for vengeance and hoping to finish what was started with King Masaru. Is he looking to kill Serene? Izuku stutters over the name as his words finally form real images in his mind. He won't let Serene be hurt. Even if he has never met the dragon, he knows she deserves the best retirement in the world. No, not Serene. Izuku, promise me you will be calm when I tell you this? Denki's words halt him. They completely make his heart stop working. His eyes dart to Katsuki's face and he feels a twinge of anger at the look on the blonde's face. As if he already knows and is in the process of accepting the inevitable. Just know. The elf said a red and white dragon of fire and ice. He said it was foretold in a prophecy that the dragon would bring them justice over their worst enemies. Denki whispers, keeping his eyes down and locked on the floor as Izuku tries to see past the tears blurring his vision. They want Shudo? He breathes out as if he can't fully understand or believe that the information is true. It just can't be. How could his dragon help someone so completely evil? He just couldn't. He couldn't let that be true. What was the exact prophecy, Denki? Katsuki asks, randomly throwing an arm over Izuku's shoulders. It takes the Greenette a second to realize it's because he has begun shaking violently as tears force themselves from his too tired eyes. All he has ever done is cried, but it hasn't seemed entirely just until now. The only thing that has ever truly been his own is his dragon. But would that even be his by the end of this all? How would they be able to defeat King Kane? Dragon of ice and flame. Come to make our enemies tame. When one seeks this red and white scales, all others will not prevail. The only hope they may own up to is the wrath of human bone and dragon blood. The words Denki recites slice through Izuku's mind like a blade to hot butter. They make him want to run away with Shudo and shield both of them away from the world for the rest of eternity. But he knows he can't just hide from all of his worries. He knows he can't deny the reality of a prophecy. Dragon blood. Katsuki whispers quietly, turning away as B walks onto his balcony and peers below at the kingdom hidden away in the mountains. A kingdom which rests on his shoulders. Izuku really is being so selfish. Katsuki must be panicking right now and Izuku is busy making this all about him. He really was self-centered, just like the blonde said. Take Deku back to his room, Denki. I have to figure out what the last line means. Katsuki orders his guard. But Izuku follows Katsuki out onto his balcony and rests his arms next to the blonde's, their elbows touching as if a quiet reminder that they are both here. I want to help. Please. The way he says it reminds him of how not too long ago he was saying the same word and begging for section. Now his whole world felt like it was caving in on him and the only sure thing he might have is death. That made him want to kill himself before anybody else could get to him. He felt so helpless. And useless. And broken. But he still wanted to make a difference. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure I already know the answer. Katsuki huffs, pushing a hand through his blonde hair as a shiver racks his body. Everything will be okay? Izuku breathes out feeling a bit hysterical. Not the good kind. More like he's going crazy with the whirlwind of emotions he has felt within the last 30 minutes. No. Katsuki growls, his teeth clenching as Izuku can see the way his jaw is working feverishly. Obviously whatever conclusion the king has come to is one that doesn't make him happy. Which both scares yet also gives Izuku a little bit of hope at the same time. That is, until Katsuki says what he is thinking. Human bone and dragon blood. That's about you, Deku. That doesn't make very much sense. Izuku doesn't have an ounce of dragon blood in him. So there's no possible way that last part could truly be about him, right? I don't have any dragon blood in me. Izuku starts with stating the obvious, trying to see this the way the blonde is seeing it. He has to understand what Katsuki means or else he'll just be like a newborn foal learning to walk. Although maybe baby steps is what he needed to take. He means that he thinks we're supposed to put dragon blood in you. Denki replies for Katsuki, causing Izuku to lose focus for a moment. Put dragon blood in me? What the hell are you talking about? That's impossible, isn't it? Deku, it is the reason I am not fully human. It's definitely possible. Katsuki informs him, turning around and resting his back against the railing of the balcony, and I'm pretty sure I know which dragon needs to lend some of its blood to you. You have to be kidding me, right? If you are serious, then I'm pretty sure my body won't be able to handle that. How is your body able to? Izuku falls into full-on muttering as he tries to think out the logistics of this all. But he always came back to a brick wall or a slap to the face. My body can handle it because it's tradition that has been passed down in my family for ages. On the other hand, you will probably have to build up muscle and be trained by the dragon whose blood we give to you. Katsuki explains, a serious look on his face which half scares Izuku and half wakes him up from his deep spiral of thoughts. What dragon? Izuku questions, deciding that he at least needs to know this if nothing else at that. It's the least they could do in this utterly wild situation. Yagi of the Tashinori dragon line. Denki guesses, receiving a nod of approval from Katsuki. Izuku's eyes blow out wide. He's heard whispers of that name. He's been told legends from maids when he was younger. But one thing has always been kept consistent. That name went hand in hand with the word dead and the title as the father of all dragons. You're lying. Isn't Yagi dead? Izuku points out, sighing exasperated as he lets his face fall with his cheek resting against the railing. Katsuki chuckles darkly, I hate to break it to you, sweetheart, but he is definitely alive. And he lives not too far from here. Izuku cuts him off by slapping a hand over his mouth, surprising the blonde and his guard. First off, please refrain from calling me sweetheart, it's not a good look for you. Second off, you can't expect me to actually believe that. And now Izuku is cut off by Katsuki liking his palm. Izuku yelps and attempts to pull his hand away, but the blonde grabs his wrist and keeps him in place. His eyes bear into Izuku, forcing Izuku to understand every word that falls from his lips. He is alive. And you will be given his blood. He won't live, Katsuki. Denki suddenly interjects himself, shaking his head no with his eyes squeezed shut. We've already given the kingdom news of your chosen bride. If he dies, then all hope will be lost. The kingdom will be in shambles once more. We can't. Being probably the only voice of reason in all of this chaos. We have no choice. You just can't. Please, Katsuki. He's the only other human here. Don't take that away from me, from the kingdom. Denki yells, his eyes bearing the look of someone who has also been through much. It's then that Izuku never actually asked Denki what his past was. Or Toru and Tsuyu for that matter. He wants to know now. He's dying to know now. You think this is easy for me either? You're being selfish. I even hate myself right now. I'm a horrible F-. Everyone get out. Katsuki roars, storming to his bathroom and slamming the door shut behind him. Denki also rushes out of the bedroom with tears streaming down his face. Izuku is left alone. He slides down onto the ground and rests against the railing as he pulls his arms around his knees and brings them to his chest. He looks down at the many city lights sparkling in the dark. Each one symbolizes at least one family settling down for the night and getting ready for bed. Each one is another weight on his shoulders for the people he must bring hope back to. For the land he must bring peace over. The weight is certainly too much for him to carry alone, but he also knows that Katsuki isn't really prepared to take all of this on his own with the promise of a coming war. Izuku must be as strong as possible. So even if he may die, he'll do what Katsuki is suggesting. Especially if it ensures the protection of his dragon. He can't let anything happen to Shudo. He won't let anything happen. Izuku. The greenette isn't sure if minutes or hours have passed. All he knows is that he is being shaken awake by the king with the feeling of tears dried onto his numb and cold face. Katsuki cradles Izuku in his arms, heaving him off the hard ground and carrying him inside to the warmth of the castle. "You're freezing," Katsuki mumbles, placing the greenette in his bed and wrapping the covers on him. Izuku can't quite process what's happening as he aches to sleep again. "Sweet dreams, Daisuki na Hito." Katsuki whispers into his ear with a feather-light voice as he lays down in the bed beside the greenette, throwing one arm over him and big spooning him. Izuku dreams a lot that night, but each one is in black and white. That is until Katsuki ends up showing up in his very last one. He comes wear long, white, silky robes adorned with huge and intricate white wings on his back. "Join me," he simply states, his hand offered down towards where Izuku is stranded on his hands and knees. He looks down at his own palms and finds them stained in blood. His veins look electric red and his whole body is stinging with pain. "What's happening to me?" Izuku breathes out shakily, his body only more in pain with each second that passes. His eyes snap back up to meet with the oddly enough muted red of Katsuki's. "You're dying." Katsuki bites out, a bittersweet smirk stretched across his pale face. He looks horrible yet so gorgeous at the same time. "But it's okay. You can join me now, Izuku." Katsuki cheers, making Izuku want to cry at what his words imply. Katsuki is already dead? But what even happened to both of them? Why did it happen? He wishes so hard that he can just make all of this stop. That he can keep himself from having to shed one more tear on his sorry self when there's bigger problems in the world. "Please, Izuku. I want you to join me." Izuku can't stop his dream self from reaching up and gripping Katsuki's hand with enough force that if this were real life, he would surely have broken the blonde's bones. But Katsuki squeezes back just as strong and begins to fly him into the sky, where a yellow dragon flies to them and throws them out of it. A dragon who then lands and swallows Katsuki whole before turning to Izuku with piercing blue eyes. The dragon has rippling muscles and insanely amazing physique. But within seconds and a poof of clouds, he suddenly has sunken in scales and tired eyes that don't shine as bright. A smaller form at that. "Young Midoriya, I am here." The dragon speaks, and somehow Izuku understands even though the only dragon he has ever been able to speak to is Shudo. He doesn't question it though as he realizes who exactly this is. There's no doubt about it now. He fits all the descriptions of stories Izuku has heard. There's no way he could be anybody but the father of all dragons. "Yagi." Izuku doesn't ask, he knows.